All right, now that we've done navigation, our next topic is selection, of course, just as we saw last time, and just as we saw before, we can use the Shift key. Well, we'll just go through some of the mouse clicks that we can use to select cells or ranges. Ranges we may want to select as well. And there's a few other neat little tricks that we can do with selection that may hopefully save you some time. And that's what we're all about in this lab portion of the course, is letting the computer do the boring stuff, so that we can concentrate on the interesting things. So to select a cell, well, you can click on it. So cell C6 is currently selected. It's got a thick border around it, and you'll notice that when you select a cell, it's got a little box at the bottom right. We're going to see what that little. Do you see at the bottom right of the cell that I've selected, C6? It has a little black square. That little square means something, so we'll get to it in a second, what that does. Now, of course, you can use the keyboard, as I'm doing right now, to move around. That's another way of selecting a cell. To select a range, you can click and drag. Let go at the bottom right. Remember, top left to bottom right will be the name of that cell. Move that range. That's going to be B9:D15 is the name of that range. You can also use the Shift key. So if I happen to be in cell C5, for instance, and I want to select a range like that, I can hold down the Shift key and use the arrow keys to make my selection. So just move around. Wherever you started from will have a white background. The others will, by default, have a blue background, baby blue background, like we have there, the other parts of the range. You want to select an entire row, you can click on the row number. To select an entire column, you can click on the column letter. If you want to select more than one column, which is essentially a range, but we won't think of it that way right now, I can select B through D by clicking and dragging. Same with selecting multiple rows. We can go like that by clicking and dragging. So we can make our selections just as before, as I mentioned, using the keyboard by selecting ranges. Now, there's one other odd thing you can also do with selection in a spreadsheet. Is you'll notice that whenever I hold down the Shift key, I'm holding down, I'm selecting cells that all touch each other, or in the fancy $5 word of the day, that's called a contiguous selection. All of the cells touch each other. They are contiguous. But if you want to select just this bit of a spreadsheet, that bit of a spreadsheet, and another part which don't touch, it's actually possible. And let's say I want to select these three cells, so that's the range B3:D3. Then I hold down the Control key, and this only works with the mouse. I can hold down the Control key and I can select these cells. And I'm still holding down the Control key and I can select those cells. So you see I've got three ranges selected. And if I wanted to make all of those ranges red, for instance, I can just click the text color button. My whole selection, even though they're little chunks and pieces which don't necessarily touch each other, and it's not one rectangle, I can do that. Once I do something that I don't want to do, I want to undo it. Remember, it's Control-Z or the little backwards arrow, which is the undo button here on the quick access buttons. Undo, and it goes away. My selection is still there, but I can click anywhere else to make my selection. So a non-contiguous selection is that fancy word. We can also use the clipboard to move things around. We can use the clipboard to, just as we had before. So let's watch the clipboard in action. Let's say I want these numbers and I want to copy them. My October income, $400 of salary, $598.11 of tips, and something called money fra. I know it happens to be money from home, 0. I can make a selection. I can right-click and choose copy. There's the clipboard. Remember, we can cut or copy into a clipboard, and we can paste out of the clipboard. Or Control-C. Control-C is copy, Control-X is cut. But I've got it here, so I'll copy. When you copy or cut something from the clipboard in Excel, it behaves slightly differently. It will suddenly have this, it's called a marquee, but I often call it the marching ants. You'll have marching ants running around your selection. And when you want to paste it, you have to make sure that you have enough space to paste the whole thing. This was 3 cells high, so whenever I paste it, I have to make sure I have 3 cells of space to paste it. So I don't want to paste it here because it would cover up some previous numbers, the 45 and the 0 that I already had. So just beware of your dimensions when you copy and paste from an Excel. So I will paste. I can choose paste up here. I've pasted it. Notice the marching ants will keep going. If you're sick of the marching ants, hit the escape key. That will make them go away. It will also mean that you can't paste anymore. This is bizarre. This is not like any other program in Windows. So I can notice that my paste button is now disabled. Once the marching ants go away, you can't paste anymore. Only in Excel does this happen. I don't like those numbers, so I'm going to select them. Maybe I'll select the entire column, and hit delete. I say column when I mean row, and row when I mean column all the time. So hopefully that won't confuse anybody, and I'll try and get it right. So we can use the clipboard. If you want to move some cells, we can also make a selection like this. Move your mouse, your cursor, just over the edge, over that thick border, on any of the four sides, but not over the little black box at the bottom right. That's different, as we'll see. You'll move your mouse just over the border, and it turns to a cursor with little compass sort of arrows, and you can click and drag. That's a way of moving cells from one place to the other. You don't like where you put it? Hit Control-Z to undo your move. So that's another way of moving things. Now, about that little box at the bottom right, that is called the autofill box, and we'll be using that again and again and again because it does all sorts of neat things. So let's say I just want, say I have a cell with a number. So I'm just going to type in, so I just selected a cell, in that case it was F4, I hit 45 and I'll hit enter. I automatically move down to the next cell, so I want to reselect F4 with the clipboard with the mouse. If I hover over, so I've got my mouse, which is normally a big white plus sign. If I hover over the bottom right of my selection, the cursor you'll see changes from a big white plus sign to a small black plus sign. You got to wait until you get that small black plus sign. It takes a little bit of careful movement of the mouse sometimes, and I'm just using my laptop touch pad, so I'm not the most accurate. But that's the autofill box there. And what that does is it lets you quickly copy whatever cell it is you're on, or even ranges, to adjacent cells or rows or columns. So I've hovered it, so I see a small black plus sign. I'll click my left mouse button and I'll drag. And it quickly copies whatever value I had there, 45 in that case, to wherever I end up. If I want to copy to the right, I can again hover over the bottom right until my cursor turns to a small black plus sign, and I can copy over to the right. You can also copy, use the autofill to, you can only, sorry, that's mistaken. You can only go up or down. If I try and go over this way, it's not going to let me. So I can only copy, use autofill to the right or down or up. I can also go up or to the left. So here, let go, and it copies that 45. So that's mildly interesting. We'll see that it's much more powerful when we get to formulas, because it can do intelligent copying, not just literal copying, not just blind and dumb copying. But we can also do things like this. What if I had 1 and then 2? So I've established a pattern. 1, then 2. What should be the next number? 3, then 4, and so forth. If I select both of them, it's not going to copy. It's going to be a little smarter than that. It's actually going to figure out my pattern and follow it. So again, I've made a selection. Here's my range. My range is going to be F18, F19. Hover my mouse over the bottom right of my selection. It turns to a thin black plus sign. And now if I drag down, you see little pop-ups on the bottom right of my cursor. Shows me what's going to happen. But if I let go, it's copied, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So if you've got a sequence and you want to quickly quickly create a sequence, you can use autofill to do that. And the sequence doesn't even have to be, well, monotonic is unfortunately the word for this, meaning increasing by 1. You could start at 3, and maybe your next number is 7. I can make a selection of those two, 3 and 7, and drag down, and you'll notice what's happening. 7, then 11, which is 7 plus 4 is 15, plus 4 is 19. So it can do very simple things like doing a sequence that increments each time by a certain fixed value. Autofill, we'll see, does more stuff with formulas, but just if you're doing sort of set patterns that autofill might know about, like the months of the year, or in this case the days of the week, you can autofill and it knows what happens. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then come after Sunday, it'll be Monday again. So autofill is smart like that. It can do the months of the year as well. We have October here. I can use autofill to get November, December, and so forth. So it's pretty bright. Now I've messed up my worksheet fairly badly, so I can, to get rid of those, I can select those columns and hit delete. If I hit to delete, it just deletes the contents of those columns. But if I right-click on a column heading and choose delete, it will actually completely wipe out any formatting or history of what I might have typed in any of those columns. So it's a subtle difference, but this is a little more powerful to right-click and hit delete versus just hitting the delete or the backspace key. But the net effect for our worksheet is the same. So it's a little more destructive to right-click on the column or row headings for that matter and hit delete. But you can always hit undo. If that was an error, if that was a mistake, I can hit Control-Z or the little undo key and get it back. Or I can redo, which means redo whatever it was that I just undid to get rid of it. Now, this falls under selection in a way because we have to make a selection to make it happen. But let's say we automatically want to do a calculation on a range. So let's say I want my August income, these three numbers, to be added together. Well, it might be very natural for you to automatically select those as a range. Now, you will actually notice way down here at the bottom, it will tell me some things about my selection. The sum, meaning the total, if I added those together, if those three cells in that range is 2,940.2. If you do the math yourself in your head, you go, okay, 2,940.2. Yes, okay, that's right. Oops. It will also give you the count. The count, as we'll see later on in a future class, we have 3 cells in our range. So that's easy. And it'll also give you the average. The average of those 3 cells is 980.06666666, and so on. Now, if I actually want to see my total appear in my worksheet and not just down at the bottom because that was my selection, as soon as I make another selection, those go away down at the bottom right. That's just a hint whenever you make any kind of range that has numbers in it. I can also use this little E. Now, it's not actually an E. It's a Greek letter sigma, but sometimes I'll call it an E just for those who are not used to that. And sigma in math always means add things together. It's from using series in mathematics. But a sigma means add it up. And if I just click the little sigma, it'll automatically dump the total in the row below in this case because I made a vertical selection of cells, a vertical range. It'll dump the total in there. And the total here, notice if in cell B7, in my formula bar, what I'm actually looking at now is a formula. We haven't seen one of those before, but if I know that a formula begins with an equal sign, only 3 things can go in a cell. A label, a number, or in this case, we have finally a formula. And a formula is how we do calculations. Much more about formulas next week and in the weeks that follow, because we'll be using them throughout. If I want to see what all my salary is for August, September, and October, maybe I make that selection and do the sum. And hey, lo and behold, there's my, it puts in a formula for me, sum, and you'll notice it's using, we can actually sort of make sense of this. So it starts with an equal sign. All formulas start with an equal sign, without exception. It uses something called a sum, which is actually a function. We'll have to wait a couple weeks before we see more about that. But we do see a range, B4 colon D4, top left to bottom right. There's no top or bottom, but it still works. B4 through D4 is that. So apparently it's taking the sum of that range, adding those numbers together. And if I look down here, those numbers add up to 2050. And sure enough, that's what it's giving me here. It's giving me the sum. I can put maybe total, a little label in there to remind me what that number is. Down here, I'm getting some totals as well. I can see those in place. So the auto sum, you make a selection and it dumps the sum below that. We'll see it can do other things as well. Now, just as a, not really part of selection, but if you do want to insert rows or columns, let's say I wanted to put November in. I've got August, September, and October, but I want to put figures for November, but I've already got my total here. Well, I can move total over to column F, or if I want to insert to the left of a column or above a row, I can make my selection of the column, right-click, and choose Insert. That will insert one column to the left of whatever my selected column was. If I want a row above row 8, I'll just hover over row 8, right click on the mouse, insert, inserts a row above row 8. Everything else moves down, and as we'll see later, any calculations I do will still be done correctly, even though the cells have moved around. What used to be B9 is now moved to B10, but we'll see spreadsheets are smart about this. And if I wanted to delete that row, just what we did before, or this column, column E, I can right click, choose delete, and the entire column disappears. Everything that's over to the right moves over to the left one, or however many columns I decided to choose. So that's selection. When we come back, our next topic is formatting, something that we have fun with sometimes.